Alright guys, welcome back to another Fortnite video, and in this one, it is time to go over some theories and things like that. Talk about like theories for the Season 7 story, maybe even leading into Season 8 and what that could maybe be. Because we have got a bunch of clues to go over, a bunch of theories pertaining to possible parts of the map going underwater. That is right guys, I think that's a very likely thing to happen, judging from, again, a bunch of the clues that we're able to find in the game right now and that you can see. And also talking about theories about the Snowfall skin and what it may be. So we're going to be going through a bunch of that stuff, going through the clues, also going through some theories, talking about different things, and just having fun along the way. Like, even at one point, I thought it would be kind of fun to like take down the entire Polar Peak Castle and see what it looks like without it, and it honestly looks crazy. But yeah guys, it's going to be a ton of fun. Be sure to hit that like button down below if you do enjoy it, and also comment which pickaxe you guys are using right now, because for me personally, it's either the Snow Globe or the Candy Axe. Those ones are honestly pretty great. And also shout out to these people on screen for using my supported creator code TheLlamaSir in the item shop, and also tweeting me a picture of them using it. As you guys know, I sometimes randomly pick people that tweet me a picture of them using my supported creator code, and occasionally randomly choose people's Twitter names to put in a video that do so. But thanks to all of you who have been using my code. Now without further ado here, let's jump on into it with some clues and theories. And again, like, none of these theories are confirmed yet. They're obviously theories, but there's a ton of clues pointing towards some interesting things. So let's jump into it with the first one. And this is actually sort of the first thing that started the whole idea that I think we will be getting some sort of underwater part of the map coming up in the future. And the basics of it are that the giant iceberg biome, parts of it definitely have to melt. I really don't see it sticking around, at least in the size that it's in, because it covers a very big portion of the map. And if they ever want to change things or do something else, they're going to have to change this area eventually in the coming seasons. And I think they will do so, especially after like winter starts to come to a close and spring comes around. I think it just makes sense logically that they would move towards some melting part of this down and maybe keeping a smaller portion of it, you know, snowy. But that's just like a logical clue. That's what I think will happen. But there's other clues that lead me to think this. And one of those that I think is super important is actually by taking a look at some of the items within the Battle Pass. Now I know what you may be thinking. If you're new to like looking for clues in the Battle Pass, they've actually done a ton of stuff, or more specifically hinted towards things within, you know, items in the Battle Pass. Usually it tends to be like the sprays or the emotes and things like that. And emotes, I mean like the emoticons. But there's definitely some very interesting ones in the Battle Pass that don't quite make sense at first until you start to think of them as maybe being things that point towards, you know, the snow and stuff like that melting. Now there's one really good one here, but like, let's just start off with the first one. I think there's like about 3 here that might point towards this. And the first of which is a melting snowman. Now obviously this could be just a cool piece of artwork by itself. You know, having a melting snowman looks pretty interesting, especially as like a spray. But isn't it a little bit odd that it's specifically melting? Why would they do a melting snowman when they could have just done a regular snowman, which is like way more common? I think it's pointing towards, you know, stuff on the map maybe melting and things like that. Now keeping it going here with the other ones that I think are super interesting, there's also one which is an octopus, which I think is kind of weird. And this is a banner, it's not a spray. But yeah, it just seems super out of place, especially with a season that's more so about snow and stuff like that. I mean, we have all these snowy skins like Zenith and stuff like that. So that by itself is very odd, and I think we'll wrap back around to that in just a sec here. But then it leads me into the spray that I think is the biggest clue of all. And that one, guys, is the porthole. Now this one right here seems so out of place that it has to point towards something. I mean, just take a look at it. It's a porthole with a view of like fish and I think a stingray right there, and it's clearly underwater. Now that actually leads me to my next clue in just a sec here. But again, these sprays and items have pointed towards things coming into the game before they actually were in the game. Like one that I can remember is Laser Chomp, which, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe this one came out before the glider of the same name. So again, it has happened before. But moving on to my next clue here, which builds off of that last spray that we just talked about, and you may have already seen it. I mean, it was part of one of the challenges, but the submarine on the map. So again, just as a reminder of where the submarine is, it's kind of close to Polar Peak, but you have to go over a little bit, and it's on top of this big pointy piece of the iceberg. But on top of there is a fully modeled and super detailed submarine. Why else would this be here unless it was pointing towards something happening in the future? I don't believe this is in Save the World, and correct me if I'm wrong, it could be, but if it is indeed made specifically for Battle Royale, somebody at Epic Games had to put in the work to design it the way that it is. And again, it looks really cool and is super detailed, so I don't think they would put in that work unless it had a bigger role in the story. Sort of like how, you know, the Polar Peak Castle is really cool, really detailed, and a lot of stuff has been happening over there that seems to have to do with the story itself. On top of that, a submarine is super out of place in a snowy iceberg biome. You know what I'm saying? Sure, the castle makes sense. The Happy Hamlet is like this snowy type of village. That makes sense as well. The outposts, all of that makes sense, but a submarine doesn't really fit. But again, connecting it to that spray was clearly a porthole of what looks like a submarine, and the colors kind of seem similar to the one that's on the map, but it was looking underwater. So if that has to do with this submarine on the map itself, I think it could be pointing towards somewhere in the future, part of this iceberg biome melting, and maybe we'll get some underwater area or something like that where the submarine, maybe it's going to go over there and float around or something. I don't know. That's just a theory, and we'll circle around to more of those theories in a sec. But this by itself, guys, I just think is really peculiar, but I think it's pointing towards something. But that's not our final clue. That's definitely one of the best clues, but if we keep it going here, we've got a bunch more to go over. And this one right here actually sort of builds off that first one or circles around back to it a little bit. The thing about how I just think that the iceberg biome at least won't stay completely how it is. Just because, again, it covers a very big portion of the map. If they ever want to do other things in the future, they're going to run out of space unless they, you know, change this portion around a bit. So it just makes sense. But on top of that, this clue right here, again, points towards, you know, some of it melting. And that, guys, is the Polar Peak. Whatever's going on with Polar Peak, all of that stuff, it is very, very, very clearly already melting. Now, that's sort of obvious in and of itself, but there's a couple of other things you may not have noticed, or if you've watched my videos, you may have known about them already. But still, just as a reminder, again, we're going over all these clues to try and, you know, come up with these theories as best we can. But you guys know that more and more of the castle has been revealed. The sort of icy portion of it keeps shrinking and revealing more and more of the castle. And we do know that it's shrinking for sure. Like, I've been continuing to check it, and certain areas slowly, like each day, keep revealing a little bit more and more. And who knows, maybe it'll like skip ahead and reveal a ton. But on top of that, you can also go to this bottom area, which I did feature in my previous video yesterday. There's a bunch of update news in that one, so be sure to check it out. But if you go to this cave on the back of Polar Peak and then go inside of it, you can see that there is water dripping from the ceiling, which obviously means that it is melting. Now, if it is melting, I don't think that this one area would be the only place to melt. Now, we don't know of any other place that is shrinking in the iceberg biome yet, but if this is shrinking, it definitely could, you know, change. I think it's for sure possible. I mean, why would Polar Peak be the only place to melt? It doesn't really make sense, unless it has something to do with the Ice King, but I don't know about that. And then if it is melting, again, that could lead to like the water forming in certain areas of the map. And yeah, guys, I decided to like take down the main building just to see what it would look like, and it was actually kind of a fun challenge. If you guys want something random to do in like Playground, just go and try and take down the entire main castle of Polar Peak. But yeah, I was curious to see what it would look like what the ice under it would look like and stuff like that. And it definitely was really interesting. It took me a lot of time on the mounted turret to take it all down. Had to throw some dynamite in there as well, but eventually I got there, and it does look very interesting. I mean, just take a look at how much space is actually here and how many loot spawns there actually are. So I don't know, maybe some of this will be shrinking. We'll have to see. It's definitely like uniquely modeled around the castle, but pretty interesting overall. But on top of that, there's also something that I found very interesting. They recently released a fish-inspired skin, which seems very, you know, peculiar to me. Why would they release a skin that's clearly a fish out of everything else they could have done? I mean, the skins that they have been releasing recently have mainly had to do with the holidays, and I more so mean like the new skins that they've been releasing. They're sort of, you know, more holiday inspired. But then all of a sudden we got Fish Stick and also a glider that came with him, which is like some coral. Oh, that's right, it's called the Coral Cruiser. So it is indeed, you know, like underwater themed. I find that very odd. There had to be some inspiration of like underwater, and I just feel like this is pointing towards an underwater portion of the map coming up eventually. I mean, just all of this stuff together seems to be pointing towards it. But yeah, guys, so let's talk about then like some theories. I haven't seen a lot of guesses about like what the Snowfall skin is going to be, and again, that is like the skin in the battle pass where you have to complete 60 weekly challenges to unlock it. Last season's was the aim skin, and that had to do with the story a little bit, but I do have a guess for what this could possibly be. It fits in with the rest of my theories about some possible new underwater areas. Could this skin be some sort of like scuba diver inspired skin? And I don't mean like the ones we already have, but I mean like a more futuristic, I don't know, underwater explorer that can swim around for as long as he wants. And maybe he has like this high-tech gear that lets him explore underwater. I don't know. That's just an idea, but I think it could make sense. And it kind of looks like he has maybe a high-tech design because the silhouette is very smooth. If he's wearing a helmet, it would be a very slim design. So that could be a possibility. But then after that, if we do get an underwater, area, how exactly would that work? Because the water areas that we have right now, all of it is shallow enough for you to walk through. So that begs the question, if we do eventually get an underwater area, how exactly will that play out? Well, I mean, it is possible that maybe we just get a big area that has a lot of these, lakes where it only slows you down, but you can still walk through it. It's not like you have to swim through it. But then on top of that, maybe we will get like a way to swim through these. I mean, that would be pretty crazy, but if they added like some deep water area that you can actually like jump into, I mean, it would make sense that maybe they'd add some animation where you can swim through it. It would make for some very interesting battles, but I don't know if that's likely. Still would be cool though, because maybe there'd be fish you could swim around and stuff like that. And actually, something that I think is maybe likely for this, and this is sort of where I came up with this little concept that you can see here. This isn't an official image, it's just something I made to sort of create a visual for what something like this may look like, but I feel if they do a sort of deeper underwater area, that it could be around where Greasy Grove used to be. I mean, it would just make sense. There's obviously a frozen lake at Greasy Grove, or again, where it used to be, because that is part of one of the weekly challenges. Now, with that being said though, since it is part of the weekly challenge, that itself probably would not happen this season. It still could happen next season, I mean, and that would be a likely guess, or we could get an underwater area somewhere else on the map. But it is interesting how there's already like some floating stuff in the ice if you go down there and take a look around. So it's a possibility in the future, or again, it could happen somewhere else on the map. But yeah, guys, that is it for my theories. Again, they are just theories, but I do think they could be likely. So yeah, guys, if you enjoyed today's video, be sure to hit that subscribe button down below for more fun videos like this coming out in the near future. And you can also check out some of my previous videos here, such as on the left, going over some new update things that are going to be coming out soon and stuff like that, and then my week 4 challenges guide on the right. But other than that, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one.